The chamber was silent as Daniel Mercer walked toward the center platform. Above him, 12 massive seats formed a half-circle, each one holding a representative from the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had ruled these stars for 50,000 years. Today, humanity was asking to join them. Daniel wore his best suit. He had practiced his speech 100 times. Earth had waited 2 centuries for this moment. Ever since humans first discovered they were not alone in the universe. Now, in the year 2347, they finally had the technology to reach the stars and meet their neighbors. He cleared his throat and began to speak. He told them about Earth, about human history, about their art and music and dreams. He spoke of their desire for peace, for knowledge, for friendship with other species. He painted a picture of humanity at its best, hopeful and reaching toward the future. The council listened without expression. Their faces, so different from human faces, revealed nothing. The Kelveri High Chancellor, Vortek, sat in the central seat. His gray skin and black eyes made him look like a statue carved from stone. When Daniel finished, he waited. The council members turned to each other. Strange sounds filled the chamber as they discussed in their own languages. Daniel's translator couldn't keep up with all of it, but he caught fragments. Young, dangerous, unstable. Less than an hour passed before Vortek raised his hand for silence. He looked down at Daniel with something that might have been pity, or perhaps contempt. "The council has reached a decision," Vortek said. His voice was deep and cold. "Humanity's application for membership is rejected." Daniel felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. "May I ask why?" "You may." Vortek leaned forward slightly. "Your species is too young. 10,000 years of civilization is nothing. The youngest member of this council has existed for 300,000 years. You are infants." "We learn quickly," Daniel said. "You learn violence quickly," another council member spoke. This was Admiral Selden of the Vorthan, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. "Your history is written in blood. War after war after war. You cannot even stop fighting among yourselves. We have achieved peace on Earth," Daniel argued. "We have united our world. For now," Vortek said. "But your nature remains. You carry what we call the persistence trait. You do not know when to stop. You do not accept defeat. You do not surrender even when surrender is logical. This makes you dangerous." Daniel wanted to argue that persistence was a strength, not a weakness. But he could see in their eyes that they had already made up their minds. "Return to your small corner of space," Vortek continued. "Stay within your borders. Do not venture into council territory. Perhaps in 10,000 years, if your species survives, you may apply again." The dismissal was clear. Daniel was escorted out of the chamber by guards who would not meet his eyes. He walked back to his ship, feeling the weight of billions of hopes crushing down on him. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Daniel spent most of it alone in his quarters, staring at the stars through his window. These same stars that had once seemed full of promise now felt cold and distant. Humanity had reached out its hand in friendship, and the galaxy had slapped it away. When he delivered his report to the United Earth government, the reaction was mixed. Some leaders were angry, demanding that humanity ignore the Council's rules and expand anyway. Others were defeated, saying perhaps the Council was right, perhaps humans weren't ready. Admiral Grace Sullivan stood up during the debate. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. "The Council thinks we're too aggressive," she said. "Too persistent. They see these as flaws, but I see them as strengths. They just don't know it yet." "What are you suggesting?" President Martinez asked. "I'm suggesting we do exactly what they told us to do. We stay in our borders. We don't cause trouble." Sullivan paused. "But we don't stop growing either. We build, we research, we prepare, and we wait." "Wait for what?" Sullivan looked around the room. "For the day they need us, and that day will come. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Sooner or later, something will happen that their ancient wisdom and careful planning cannot handle. And when that day comes, we'll be ready. The decision was made. Humanity would respect the Council's borders, but they would not give up. They would prove themselves worthy, whether the Council wanted them to or not. 50 years passed. The children who had watched Daniel's rejection on their screens grew old. Their children grew up hearing stories about the arrogant aliens who had turned humanity away. But life went on. Humans colonized 17 worlds within their permitted space. They built stations and outposts and research facilities, and they developed technology that no one had ever seen before. Human scientists didn't follow the same rules as Council researchers. They made mistakes that proper scientists would never make. They tried things that seemed foolish or impossible. Most of the time, they failed. But sometimes, in failing, they discovered something new. Something the careful, methodical Council species had never imagined. Admiral Sullivan, now 90 years old, watched from Earth Fleet Command as humanity's power grew. She never forgot why they were doing this. She never let anyone forget. Then, on a quiet night at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station, a young technician named Amy Dawson noticed something strange on her screen. A signal was coming from beyond the galactic rim, from a region of space the Council had forbidden anyone to enter. She ran the signal through her computers. It was a distress call. The language was Kelvari, the same species that had rejected humanity 50 years ago. The message was fragmented, broken, but the meaning was clear. Something terrible had happened. Something was coming, and the mighty Galactic Council was afraid. Amy reported her finding to her superiors. Within hours, the message reached Admiral Sullivan. The old woman read it 3 times, then smiled a grim smile. "Get me the President," she said. "The day we've been waiting for has finally arrived." Outside her window, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was about to change forever, and humanity, rejected and dismissed, was about to show everyone what they were truly made of. Commander Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Resolute, watching the chaos unfold on his screens. Council ships were everywhere, flooding into the demilitarized zone that separated human space from Council territory. They weren't attacking. They were running. "Sir, I'm picking up hundreds of distress signals," Lieutenant Amy Dawson said from her station. She had been transferred to the Resolute after her discovery of the first signal. "They're all saying the same thing. They're begging for help." Nathan had served in Earth Fleet for 20 years. He had seen pirates and smugglers and the occasional border dispute. He had never seen anything like this. These were Council ships, vessels belonging to the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and they were fleeing in terror. "Can you get me a clear channel to any of them?" he asked. Amy worked her controls. Static filled the bridge, then a voice broke through. It was speaking Kelvari, but the translator converted it instantly. "They're everywhere. We can't stop them. Nothing works. Our weapons are useless." The voice dissolved into screaming. Then silence. Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. "What the hell is out there?" The answer came an hour later, when Earth Fleet Command transmitted a priority briefing to all vessels. Nathan gathered his senior officers and played the message. Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on screen, looking older and more tired than Nathan had ever seen her. "This is what we know," Sullivan said. 3 months ago, a Kelvari research team entered forbidden space beyond the galactic rim. They were looking for ancient technology. What they found was the Devourer swarm. The screen showed images that made Nathan's blood run cold. Millions of machines, each one the size of a small ship, moving through space like a cloud of hungry insects. They consumed everything in their path. Asteroids, stations, planets, ships. Nothing was left behind except dust. The swarm was believed to be a myth. Sullivan continued. Old stories said it destroyed civilizations in the distant past, then went dormant. The Kelvari expedition woke it up. Now it's spreading inward from the rim, and it's growing. Every piece of matter it consumes becomes more swarm units. Ardor. 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 Nathan watched as the images showed a Council battle fleet engaging the swarm. The council ships were beautiful, their weapons elegant and precise. They fired with perfect coordination, exactly as they had been trained for thousands of years. The swarm didn't care. Within minutes, it adapted to the council's tactics. It learned the frequency of their weapons and generated shields against them. It studied their formation patterns and found weaknesses. The fleet that had looked so impressive was torn apart in less than 2 hours. Current projections show the swarm reaching Council core worlds in 18 months, Sullivan said. It will reach Earth space in 22 months. There is nowhere to run. This enemy doesn't negotiate, doesn't retreat, and doesn't stop. This is an extinction-level threat for every living thing in the galaxy. The message ended. Nathan's officers sat in stunned silence. "What do we do, sir?" his first officer asked. Before Nathan could answer, Amy spoke up. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission. This one is different. It's coming directly to us, using Council diplomatic codes." Nathan frowned. "Put it on screen." A face appeared that Nathan recognized from history lessons. High Chancellor Vortek of the Kelvari, the same alien who had rejected humanity 50 years ago. He looked different now. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. In its place was something Nathan had never expected to see: fear. "This message is for the human government," Vortek said. "I am transmitting from a diplomatic vessel, currently approaching your space. I am requesting permission to enter." Nathan noticed the pause before the word requesting. Vortek had probably never requested anything from a younger species in his entire life. "I come to discuss matters of mutual survival," Vortek continued. "The situation is grave. We must speak, human to Kelvari, as equals." The word seemed to cause him physical pain. "Please respond." Nathan immediately forwarded the transmission to Earth. Within hours, the response came back. President Laura Bennett had agreed to meet with Vortek. The location would be Earth Station Sentinel, on the border between human and Council space. Nathan was ordered to escort the diplomatic vessel. As the Resolute took position alongside the Council ship, he studied it through his view screen. It was graceful and ancient, covered with symbols that represented 50,000 years of civilization. And it looked very, very small against the darkness of space. "You know what this means," Amy said quietly, standing beside him. Nathan nodded. "They need us. After everything they said, after all those years of treating us like children, they need our help. Will we give it to them?" Nathan thought about the images he had seen. The swarm consuming everything, the Council fleets burning. He thought about his family on Earth, his nieces and nephews who were just starting their lives. "We'll help them," he said. "Not because they deserve it. Not even because they asked. We'll help them because that's what humans do. When the galaxy is burning, we don't stand aside and watch." He turned back to the view screen. Somewhere beyond those stars, the swarm was growing, spreading, consuming. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced was coming, and there was no stopping it. But humans had never been good at accepting that something couldn't be stopped. It was exactly the quality the Council had called dangerous. The persistence trait, the inability to surrender even when surrender was logical. Maybe, Nathan thought, it was time to show the galaxy why that trait wasn't a weakness at all. The diplomatic vessel glided through space ahead of them, carrying the leader who had once dismissed humanity as infants. Now that same leader was coming to beg for help. The universe had a strange sense of humor. But Nathan wasn't laughing. He was preparing for war. Earth Station Sentinel hung in the darkness between two empires. It was a place built for meetings like this, where enemies could become allies and old wounds could begin to heal. President Laura Bennett arrived first, bringing Admiral Sullivan, Dr. Henry Park, from Advanced Research, and Commander Nathan Cole. High Chancellor Vortek arrived an hour later. He brought representatives from all 12 Council species, filling the conference room with beings that humanity had only seen in pictures and recordings. Some had scales, some had feathers, Some had forms that human eyes struggled to understand, but they all wore the same expression: desperation, hidden behind thin masks of pride. Vortek took his seat at the head of the council delegation. He looked at President Bennett, and for a long moment, neither spoke. 50 years of rejection hung in the air between them. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Vortek finally said. The words seemed difficult for him, like speaking a language he barely knew. "The situation is serious," Bennett replied. "We have a common enemy now. It would be foolish not to talk." Vortek nodded. "Indeed. The swarm threatens us all. We must work together to defeat it. The council proposes an alliance. We're listening." Vortek straightened in his seat, and some of his old arrogance crept back into his voice. "Human ships will join the council fleet under council command. Your soldiers will serve in support roles, assisting our warriors. In exchange, humanity will receive provisional associate status with the council. Not full membership, but recognition." Admiral Sullivan made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You want us to follow your orders? The same orders that got your fleets destroyed? Our tactical doctrines have been refined over 30,000 years, said Admiral Selden of the Vorthan. His forearms crossed over his chest in what looked like anger. "We do not need advice from a species that was living in mud huts when we were conquering star systems." Nathan Cole shifted in his seat but said nothing. He had been ordered to observe and speak only if necessary. Dr. Park stood up. He was a small man with glasses and gray hair. The kind of person who looked more comfortable in a laboratory than a diplomatic meeting, but his voice was steady as he walked to the display screen. "May I show you something?" he asked. Vortek waved his hand in permission. Park activated the screen. Images appeared of council fleets engaging the swarm. "This is the Battle of Korvax, 6 weeks ago. 112 council warships, the finest vessels in the galaxy." He paused. "Destroyed in 90 minutes. The council delegates shifted uncomfortably. This is the Battle of Peloran Station. 80 ships. Destroyed in 2 hours." Park showed image after image. The destruction was total. The swarm learns. It adapts. Every time you fight it using the same tactics, it becomes better at defeating those tactics. Your 30,000 years of doctrine are worthless because the swarm already knows all of it. "Then what do you suggest?" Selden demanded. Park smiled slightly. "Humans have been studying captured swarm units. Our ships have been running missions into border zones, retrieving pieces of destroyed machines. We've learned things about how the swarm thinks." "Impossible," Vortek said. "The swarm territory is beyond safe reach." "Safe is a relative term," Admiral Sullivan said. "We lost 12 ships getting those samples. But we got them." The council delegates exchanged looks. Sacrificing ships for information was not something they did. It was wasteful. It was illogical. It was very human. Park continued. "We've developed weapons designed to exploit the swarm's adaptation process. We've created tactics that change constantly, never giving the machines time to learn. But these methods require flexibility. They require commanders who can think for themselves in the middle of battle, not follow predetermined plans." President Bennett stood up. "Here are humanity's terms. We will join this war. We will fight beside you. But we will not serve under you." Vortek's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Human ships will be commanded by human officers. Human forces will operate independently, coordinating with council forces but not controlled by them. And when this war is over, humanity will receive full council membership. No conditions, no waiting period." The chamber erupted. Several council delegates began shouting in their own languages. Vortek raised his hand for silence, but it took several minutes before order was restored. "You would use this crisis to extort membership?" Vortek's voice was cold with fury. "Billions are dying. And you bargain like merchants?" Commander Cole spoke for the first time. His voice was calm and quiet, but somehow it cut through the anger in the room. "High Chancellor, may I speak?" Vortek looked at him. "You are a soldier. What could you possibly add to this discussion? I was at the border when your ships came fleeing into our space. Cole said. I heard the transmissions. Your people screaming for help. Your warriors begging for someone, anyone, to save them. He leaned forward. I've served in Earth Fleet my whole life. I've never heard fear like that. The room was silent. Your pride is understandable, Cole continued. You've ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. Asking for help must feel like failure. But your people are dying. Not in hundreds. Not in thousands. In billions. And every day you spend arguing about who gives orders is another day the swarm grows stronger. He looked directly at Vortek. You can hate us. You can think we're primitive and aggressive and dangerous. But right now, we might be the only thing that can save your civilization. Is your pride worth extinction? Vortek stared at Cole for a long moment. The other council delegates looked at their leader, waiting. Finally, Vortek closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. We need to discuss this privately, he said. The council delegation withdrew to another room. 12 hours passed. President Bennett and her team waited, drinking coffee and trying not to think about what failure would mean. When Vortek finally returned, his face was unreadable. The council accepts your terms, he said. The words came out slowly, painfully. Human forces will operate under human command. Coordination will be equal partnership, not subordination. And upon victory, humanity will receive full membership. He paused. May the stars forgive us all if we're making a mistake. President Bennett extended her hand. It was a human gesture, one that Vortek probably didn't understand. But after a moment, he reached out and took it. No mistakes, Bennett said. Just survival. Yours and ours, together. The alliance was formed. The war could now truly begin. The combined fleet gathered at the Meridian staging point, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Ships from 13 species filled the space around the station. Council vessels with their elegant curves floated beside human warships with their heavy armor and bristling weapons. It was an uneasy partnership, but it was real. Admiral Grace Sullivan stood on the command deck of the flagship Defiance, looking out at the fleet she now commanded. Beside her was Admiral Selthan of the Vorthan, serving as her second in command. He had argued against the appointment. He had lost. They don't trust us, Sullivan said, watching a group of council cruisers maneuver past. Can you blame them? Selthan replied. 3 weeks ago, your species was forbidden from entering our space. Now, you command our fleets. I don't need their trust. I need their obedience. Selthan made a sound that might have been a laugh. That, Admiral, you will have. We are soldiers. We follow orders, even orders we disagree with. The first test came at the Kalos Nebula. Swarm forces were advancing on a cluster of inhabited worlds, billions of lives waiting to be consumed. Previous council doctrine called for a defensive formation, meeting the enemy head-on with maximum firepower. Sullivan had a different plan. She divided the fleet into 3 groups. The first, mostly council ships, took position in front of the swarm's advance, exactly where the machines expected them. The second group, a mix of human and council vessels, hid within the dense gases of the nebula. The third, entirely human ships equipped with Dr. Park's new weapons, waited in silent running mode behind a nearby moon. The swarm attacked exactly as predicted. Millions of machines rushed toward the defensive line, already adapting to the weapon frequencies they detected. The council ships fought bravely, but they were slowly pushed back. Casualties mounted. Then Sullivan gave the order. The hidden fleet emerged from the nebula, striking the swarm's flank. The machines began to turn, to adapt, to counter this new threat. But before they could complete the adjustment, the third group appeared behind them, human ships firing weapons the swarm had never encountered, targeting the coordination nodes that allowed the machines to work together. The effect was immediate. Swarm units began moving erratically, losing their perfect synchronization. The council ships, no longer facing a coordinated attack, pushed forward. Human vessels wove through the chaos, striking again and again, never staying in one place long enough for the swarm to adapt. The battle lasted 9 days. Human casualties were severe. 3 destroyers, 1 cruiser, and over 2,000 lives lost. But when it was over, the swarm had been stopped. More than stopped. Defeated. Across the fleet, council officers watched in amazement. They had never seen anything like this. The humans fought with a ferocity that was almost frightening. They took risks that seemed insane, and somehow, impossibly, they won. Commander Nathan Cole led the next phase of the campaign. He was promoted and given command of a special operations unit, tasked with striking behind swarm lines. His team included 50 human marines and, at Selvin's insistence, 20 Kelvari Special Forces soldiers. The two groups hated each other at first. The Kelvari thought the humans were reckless and undisciplined. The humans thought the Kelvari were rigid and slow. Cole spent the first week just keeping them from killing each other. Their mission was to find and destroy a swarm coordination hub, a massive structure that directed machine activity across an entire sector. Intelligence suggested it was located on a dead world deep in swarm territory. Getting there would be nearly impossible. Getting out would be even harder. They traveled in a captured swarm vessel, disguised to look like a damaged unit returning for repairs. The journey took 2 weeks, hiding among the endless stream of machines flowing toward the hub. Cole barely slept, knowing that one wrong move would mean death for all of them. The dead world was exactly what the name suggested. Once it had supported life, but the swarm had consumed everything. Now it was just rock and metal, covered in machine structures that pulsed with cold energy. The team landed under cover of darkness, though darkness meant little to machines that didn't need light to see. They moved through tunnels carved into the planet's crust, following signals toward the hub's central chamber. They were 2 kilometers from the target when everything went wrong. A swarm patrol detected them. Alarms spread through the complex. Suddenly, they were fighting for their lives. Human rifles and Kelvari energy weapons blazing against an endless tide of machines. Sub-Commander Talven, the Kelvari officer leading her people, fought beside Cole at the front. She was fast and precise, every shot finding its mark, but there were too many machines, coming from every direction. A plasma blast caught Talven in the side. She fell, purple blood spreading across the floor. Cole grabbed her and dragged her behind cover. "Medic! I need a medic here." "Leave me," Talven gasped. Her breathing was ragged. "Complete the mission. One life is not worth failure." "Rag." Cole ignored her. He bandaged her wound with his own emergency kit, while his Marines held back the machines. "We don't leave people behind." "Why?" she demanded. "I am not your species. I am not your friend. Why risk everything for me?" Cole looked at her with something like surprise. "Because that's what humans do. We fight for each other. All of us. Human or not, we're in this together now." He lifted her onto his shoulder and ordered the advance to continue. The team pushed forward, fighting through corridor after corridor, leaving destroyed machines in their wake. Talven drifted in and out of consciousness, but she never stopped Cole from carrying her. They reached the central chamber. It was vast, filled with processing cores that hummed with dark energy. Cole set the charges himself, while his team held the entrances. Swarm units poured in from every direction. "Charges set. Fall back." The retreat was a nightmare. They lost 7 Marines and 3 Kelvari soldiers covering the escape. Cole carried Talven the entire way, refusing to put her down even when his muscles screamed in protest. They reached the extraction point just as the charges detonated. The ground shook. Behind them, the hub collapsed into itself, taking millions of swarm units with it. On the ship heading home, Talven woke up to find Cole sitting beside her bed. "You should be resting," she said weakly. "I'll rest when we're safe." She studied him for a long moment. "You truly don't understand, do you? What you did goes against everything we believe. Individual sacrifice for the mission. It's our highest principle." Our kin? Cole shrugged. Different principles, I guess. Humans don't sacrifice their own unless there's no other choice. Everyone matters. Everyone comes home if possible. Even your enemies? You're not my enemy anymore. You're my teammate. He stood up. Get some sleep, Sub-Commander. The war isn't over yet. He walked out, leaving Talvin staring at the ceiling. For the first time in her life, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, her people had been wrong about humans all along. The hub's destruction crippled swarm operations in the entire sector. The war had truly turned, and the galaxy began to realize that the persistent, aggressive, impossible humans might just save them all. 3 years of war changed everything. Human worlds burned alongside council worlds. Billions died on both sides. The names of fallen planets became a litany of grief that everyone in the galaxy knew by heart. Korvax, Peleron, New Eden, Kelvar Prime. No species was spared. No corner of the galaxy was safe. But slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. Admiral Sullivan developed new strategies that blended human aggression with council discipline. Mixed units became normal instead of strange. Young council officers learned to trust their instincts instead of their doctrine. Human crews learned patience and precision from their elder allies. What had begun as a desperate alliance became something real. The final offensive targeted the swarm's heart. Deep in the forbidden space beyond the galactic rim, there was a structure that had existed since before the galaxy had names for its stars. This was where the swarm had been born, where its central intelligence resided. As long as it survived, the swarm would eventually recover. The only way to end the threat forever was to destroy it completely. The fleet that gathered for the attack was magnificent. 4,000 warships from 13 species, flying together under a single banner. Human and council vessels formed mixed squadrons, their crews having fought and bled together for 3 years. They were no longer strangers. They were family. Captain Nathan Cole, promoted twice since the hub mission, led the assault team that would penetrate the structure's interior. His unit had grown into something unique. Human Marines, Kelvari soldiers, Vorthan heavy troops, and volunteers from half a dozen other species. They had trained together, fought together, and buried their dead together. Sub-Commander Talvin served as his second-in-command. The wound she had received 3 years ago had healed, but she carried the scar proudly. It reminded her of the day she learned what humans truly were. The approach to the structure was a battle in itself. Swarm defenders numbered in the billions, a final desperate attempt to protect their core. Council ships drew their fire while human vessels punched through to deliver the assault teams. Cole's transport took heavy damage during the insertion. Half his people were wounded before they even set foot inside the structure. But they kept moving. They had come too far to stop now. The interior was a maze of metal and energy, corridors that shifted and changed as the swarm tried to trap them. Cole led from the front, as he always did. Talvin covered their rear, her rifle never stopping. They lost people at every junction. Friends and comrades who had survived 3 years of war fell to the swarm's defenses. Each death was a wound that Cole carried. But he couldn't afford to mourn. Not yet. The central chamber was unlike anything they had expected. It was vast beyond measurement. A space that shouldn't exist inside any structure. In the center floated a sphere of pure energy, pulsing with patterns too complex for organic minds to understand. This was the swarm's consciousness, its brain, its soul if machines could have souls. Captain Cole. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It was cold and ancient, speaking directly into their minds. You have fought well, better than any organic species we have encountered. Your persistence is remarkable. Cole raised his weapon. Talking won't save you. Talking won't save you. We are not seeking salvation. We are offering an arrangement. The sphere pulsed brighter. Withdraw your forces. Leave this galaxy. We will not pursue. We will consume what remains and spread to other galaxies, leaving your kind in peace. Talvin looked at Cole. Captain? Cole stared at the sphere. For one moment, he imagined it. Peace. No more death. Just walking away and letting someone else deal with the problem. Then he thought about New Eden, the human colony world that had been consumed in the first year of the war. 8 million people, including his sister and her children. He thought about Kelvar Prime and the look on Vortex's face when he learned his homeworld was gone. He thought about 3 years of funerals and memorial services and empty beds in barracks that would never be filled again. No deal, he said. You cannot destroy us completely. We will survive. We will adapt. We will return. Maybe, but not today. Cole turned to his team. Set the charges. All of them. The swarm attacked with everything it had. The chamber filled with machines, more than Cole had ever seen in one place. His team fought with desperate fury. Buying time for the demolition experts to work, people fell one after another, selling their lives for seconds. Cole fought until his rifle overheated, then switched to his sidearm. Talvin was beside him, back to back, guarding each other as they always did. Charges set, someone screamed. We need to go now. The retreat was chaos. Cole grabbed wounded soldiers and dragged them toward the exit. Talvin covered him, her fire never stopping. They ran through corridors that collapsed behind them, the structure already beginning to die as the charges destabilized its core. They barely made it to the extraction point. The transport lifted off just as the structure began to implode. Through the viewport, Cole watched the heart of the swarm collapse into itself, taking billions of machines with it. A chain reaction spread outward, consuming the defensive fleet that had protected it. Across the galaxy, swarm units went silent. Without the central intelligence to guide them, they became nothing but metal and circuits, falling out of formation, crashing into asteroids and planets. The war wasn't over, but the enemy was broken. 18 months later, the Galactic Council convened a special session on Nexus Prime. The same chamber where humanity had been rejected 50 years ago was now decorated with the flags of 13 species. The seats that had once looked down on Daniel Mercer with contempt now held beings who had fought beside humans, bled beside humans, and learned to respect them. High Chancellor Vortex stood at the podium. He was old now, aged by the war and the loss of his homeworld. But his voice was strong as he spoke. 50 years ago, this council made a decision. We rejected humanity because we believed them too young, too aggressive, too dangerous. We were wrong. The chamber was silent. Humans are aggressive. They are persistent. They do not accept defeat. Vortex paused. These qualities saved us all. When the swarm came, we fought with our ancient wisdom and our careful plans. We failed. Humans fought with their reckless courage and their stubborn refusal to surrender. They succeeded. He turned to face President Bennett, who stood with her delegation below the council seats. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally welcome humanity as the 13th member species. Not because we are being generous, not because we are paying a debt, but because you have earned this place, paid for it in blood and sacrifice, and proven that you belong among us. Bennett accepted the honor with quiet dignity. She spoke of the cost, the millions dead, the worlds destroyed, the scars that would take generations to heal. But she also spoke of hope, of bridges built between species that had never understood each other, of a galaxy united by crisis and strengthened by survival. Captain Cole stood in the gallery, watching the ceremony. Talvin stood beside him, wearing the uniform of the new combined forces that would protect the galaxy going forward. Is this what your people wanted? She asked. All those years ago, when they came asking for membership, Cole thought about it. We wanted respect. We wanted to be taken seriously. We wanted a chance to prove ourselves. And now you have all of that. He watched the flags of 13 species flying together. Symbols of civilizations that had almost destroyed each other and had instead learned to stand side by side. We wanted to belong, he said finally. To be part of something bigger than ourselves. I think that's what everyone wants. Really. Human or Kelvari, or anyone else. We just want to know we matter. Talvin was silent for a moment. Then she reached out and took his hand, a human gesture she had learned over 3 years of fighting beside him. You matter, Nathan Cole. Your species matters. Perhaps you always did, and we were simply too blind to see it. Cole looked out at the stars through the chamber's great windows. They stretched infinitely in all directions. No longer forbidden. No longer hostile. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and humanity was finally free to explore it all. The war was over. The future was beginning. And for the first time in 50 years, humans and the elder races faced that future together. Not as masters and servants, not as superiors and inferiors, as equals, as partners, as family.